Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum, and in this game, I'm up against a very strong standard player. Let's see how I do. Let's go. At the bottom here, I am playing as a Fire Badger specialist, and I am up against HD6R. He is, I think, one of the stronger standard players. I've watched many of his game. I didn't have a lot of pressure of playing him because of time zone differences, but for every game that I've casted and watched, I think it's just amazing games to watch. So right off the bat here, I started with Arclights and Stonecallers, and my opponent started with Tarantula and Marksman. Now here's putting Tarantula in this sort of standard formation, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I feel like Tarantulas in standard is a lot weaker than if they are, let's say, on the line around this area, simply because of their range. And also later on with the Tarantula, because they're so tanky, when they're arriving super late like this, you're kind of removing a lot of that tankiness. You want them to tank early, you want them to deal with whatever initial wave of attack usually consists of chaff clear. But later on, like especially at the later part of the round, most of the damage is going to be coming from anti-units. So Tarantula is probably not the best unit to be playing in standard. Round 1 with the Stonecaller, I did get a slight advantage, and this is no surprise whenever you are running spiders into Stonecallers. Just be prepared to lose the first couple rounds. We do have Reinforcement drop. None of it really stood out for me. I thought about getting Improved Sandworm. That could be a pretty unexpected play in the later part of this game, but there's also the danger, right? Because we're playing standard, so everything's kind of all together. Have yet to try a 201 build where you just put 4 worms like right there in the middle and just mobile beacon them left or right. I will want to practice something like that, but for now I just decided to play standard and a skip. HD did take the nano on the Tarantula. That is going to ensure the Tarantula to survive quite a bit longer under the fire of Stonecallers. And for me, this round, I just decided to add more chaff. It is also the Fire Badger round, so I put Fire Badger towards the middle, kind of to plug a hole right here, because I felt like my chaff clear was a little weak because of the missing Arclight, and added another squad of Stonecallers, knowing that he probably won't be going super heavy into crawler or fast-moving units yet. All right, the center Stonecaller is doing a fantastic job of just getting rid of that full squad of fans right there. And that's going to allow the rest of my army to engage a little bit more effectively. Once I get through these 2 big spiders, I think the 3 squads of Stonecallers are going to win against the 3 snipers. All right, round 3, we have a unit drop. Now, looking at the board here, I think the bigger problem I have to deal with is just Tarantula with Nano. Once it gets leveled, it just becomes a nightmare to deal with, even with just extra squads of Stonecallers. So I need to remove that threat very quickly. Did end up choosing the Melting Point. Melting Point also complements well with this composition, especially in the later game, because you can't expect your opponents to start dropping down larger units, giant, and also Melting Point has a lot of staying power, even if it's just Melting Point versus Marksman. So Melting Point is going to be my choice, and for my opponent, it's going to be Typhoon. I think he was a little wary of flanking on the side. If I am playing aggro, I definitely would have flanked this turn, but in standard, just not enough incentive for me to put stuff on the side, because that few seconds of delay is not going to make a real big difference because I'm not really pushing onto the tower. All right, the Melting Point is locking onto the right target, and once this Tarantula is down, there's no chaff clear with the exception of these fans, which means I am able to break in a little bit easier. The Marksman did level, which means they can now almost one-shot my Fire Badger, which is kind of scary. Okay, round 4. All right, so let's see, what do we got here? Yeah, none of this is really good. Berserk Rhino is kind of a meme card. You never really pick it. Stepsilized Crawler, again, like a meme card that you use more so in survival, but in a standard game, you almost never pick it. ER Marksman could be very good for my opponent. That's just going to make the Marksman shoot extremely far. So if he has, let's say, 8 of them, that's going to be a little difficult to get close to them. So my opponent took the ER Marksman, and I decided to skip once again. Alright, and this turn, we both decided to add crawlers at the front. He already had the crawler last round, just didn't have enough money for the mobile beacon. I've also added the crawler with the mobile beacon. The mobile beacon is a very cheap investment, so it's 100 supply plus 100 supply on the crawlers. And if used correctly, you should tank at least 2, if not 3 volleys from these stone crawlers. And that's probably going to save you a lot more than just the 200 supplies in the first couple seconds of the round. I've added another melting point on the side because I saw that the last round there was some weakness into that Typhoon. HG did sell that Typhoon. Now seeing there's really no reason to have them there because I don't really have chaff going onto the side. And he added a few more squads of Stormcallers. So now standing at a total of 5 Stormcallers up against the 3 of mine. So I am at a Stormcaller disadvantage. In a standard game, I think winning the Stormcaller war is kind of important because the Stormcallers themselves can help with the chaff tremendously in the first part of the round, but in the later part of the round, they will essentially just move forward and serve as a chaff of their own, right? Tanking against shots like the Marksman. Oil gets chosen for both sides. I think we both had the same idea. I wanted to ignite his side, and he wanted to move some stuff over to my side and get my Fire Badgers to ignite my own army. But I think the timing is just a little off because I am going to kill that Tarantula, which means this Fire Badger will have no target for a while, and they're just getting picked off. So it's interesting because now we have 2 big pool of oil just kind of sitting in the middle that we're really not taking advantage of it by using fire. So in standard game, I think whenever you're very well matched in terms of MMR, the game could go very slowly because there's a lot of weaknesses that you both kind of suffer from. And if you're plugging the holes, the rounds can be very close. But the danger of that is as soon as you have a hole in your board that can be exploited, it snowballs out of control. And often in the later part of a standard game, you could lose the round and lose the game essentially in 2 rounds simply because you're unable to deal with one of your critical weaknesses on the board. HD decided to add 2 Vulcans. One is that they're going to help with the chaff clear, of course, and also he's swapping out of the Tarantula, which I believe is the right choice. They are no longer effective and you don't really want to take range, right? Tarantula with range only goes up to what? 115, and that's nothing into a range army like mine. So the Vulcan would be the right choice, and Vulcan also helps in kind of igniting this pool of oil. And that's going to kill a whole lot of chaff. The problem with the Vulcan is that I already have melting points, so it just becomes a race of how much chaff clear can this Vulcan get done before they're killed by my melting point. So one of them is already targeted. My late arriving fan are coming in and they're going to provide quite a lot of chaff for this melting point. Tank production is actually a fantastic card here. It's even better than Steel Ball production in this case because tank themselves help with the chaff clear to deal with any sort of late arriving fans from my opponent. But also, they're taking shots from this marksman. The melting point from the center did get locked on a little sooner than I liked. And as a result of that, I wasn't able to get to that Vulcan. So that's something I'll need to fix in the future. But for now, I think this is okay. The reason it got locked on is because my Fire Badger got stuck on the oil, right? So without the oil, my Fire Badger will actually walk in front of the melting point before it hits the center, tanking at least 3 shots from this marksman. But doesn't matter. Seems like I am still winning the fight here with the Stormcaller after reinforcing 2 more squads of them last round. Alright, round 6, and this is where standard gets really dangerous. Looking at the units here, I think the Sandworm is going to be a great choice for the both of us. Everything else, at least for my opponent, it just gets locked on by my melting point a little too quickly. He did get the Rhino because it has the highest value, so he sold the Rhino for some additional cash, and he took fire. So his Stonecaller now shoots at a shorter range, 160 meters, but it can ignite the ground, whereas my Stonecaller, shooting at 180 meters, can chaff clear a little better with high explosive. And later on, if the Stonecallers get locked onto my opponents, I think I should be able to win that fight. But it's still very close though. The Sandworm is going to create a lot of disruption for my opponent. He doesn't have the burst damage yet that he needs to deal with this level 2 Sandworm effectively. And speaking of burst damage, it is going to be 3 more level 2 marksmen. And the goal here is Marksman Vulcan with the help with Stormcallers. Ideally, at the end of the round, all there's left is Marksman versus Melting Point. And because Marksman gets to scale with Elite Marksman and also with EM, he will have a greater chance of winning later rounds. So what I need to do now is to make sure, 1, that doesn't happen, which means I need to fight for a little bit of tempo. I have a slightly better board, and if I do win 1 round, as long as I have some giant left over, I can do considerable amount of damage. So I really need to finish the game in about 2 to 3 rounds, otherwise the marksman will get Elite and EM, and that's going to create a lot of problems on my side of the board. The fire on the ground is a little problematic because my crawlers are getting targeted, and as a result of that, I have now no chaff in front of this melting point, so it is very scary. But my trump card here is the Sandworm, and they're getting in, they're popping up, doing damage, and ideally I could get tower. And if I can get tower, then I could win this round with at least 2, if not 3 giants left over, and that's quite a bit of damage to his HP here. Alright, here comes the tower. Beautiful. And the Stonecallers are still doing work. Ooh, very close. Almost getting this level 2 melting point. Okay, round 7. We got sticky oil on the ground. Sticky oil is great for both of us, but I think it's especially good against my opponent because he did take fire on the Stonecaller. So what I want to do is to have oil on the ground and put some chaff on both sides. And this could be very annoying to deal with because the Stonecallers will have to turn, shoot, and then if my chaff aren't killed properly, it might get another volley from this middle Stonecaller, which means his chaff, if their crawlers are coming over to fight, or even just on the Stonecallers themselves, he might actually lose the squad of Stonecallers on either side because of the friendly fire. Alright, this round I've added more melting points and probably just a bit more chaff as well. I know there's going to be fire and oil on the ground, so I've decided to run my crawler away from the middle. Last round there was a missile, and that took out almost the entire squad of this crawler. So instead of just going straight up, mobile beaconing the whole squad, I mobile beacon about 2/3 of the squad. So whenever your opponent wants the missile, if you let a few of those crawlers slip through, the missile will always target the closest one. So creating some distance between your sort of vanguard crawlers and your standard rear guard crawlers, and that's going to save you some value when you mobile beacon in this way. Alright, oil is coming down. my opponent added acid scorpions. Acid scorpions are mostly to deal with the melting point in the later rounds, but I think there's a bit of a tempo issue with these acid scorpions. Another reason I think he went for acid scorpion is because he was expecting the sandworm pivot. Acid can deal really well into the sandworm, especially with the help of these marksmen. But I am not going to pivot into sandworm. That was just a distraction. It's a very good distraction, but ultimately what I wanted to do is to win with the melting points. Alright, so here's where the ER marksmen really start to show their power. Just so much range. And he also took elite, so at level 3, and this will soon be level 4, these marksmen will shoot for 245 meters, so that's quite a lot. Alright, round 8, there's really no good cards, so any chaos that I can create for my opponent, the better. I've already secured the flanks on the side, so there will be some fire on the ground doing some damage. He added sledgehammers to answer for that threat. Oil is off cooldown once again, and I get to use that one more time on one of the sides. The Rhino is going to be dropped right there in the middle, and the purpose for that is I want one of these Stormcallers to shoot at my Rhino, so that I will clear out at least a single squad of chaff. Okay. And seeing how my opponent's HP is within striking distance, I've decided to add 3 squads of Wasp. And I also took range on them. So why range if I'm only using them as chaff clear? Because I'm also expecting my opponent to do triple Wasp. And if I have the range, my Wasp can actually participate in destroying his Wasps, giving me that advantage. So we're very close to the end of the game here, and I just want to make sure that if I'm doing a big push, I want to do a big push, not just countering what my opponent already has, but what he may potentially do, because I do very much expect triple Wasp from him in this turn. But instead, I think it's just going to be a bunch of shields, which I understand. I think oil could be very scary, so this one, oil is completely negated. Alright, Rhino did come down. Ooh, did not trigger the second volley from the Stonecaller. It was a little unfortunate. The big pool of oil in the middle is pretty much killing all my crawlers. However, here's when the Wasps start to work. Another reason to take range on this Wasp is because with range, you can actually kill the fans before they kill your Wasp, which means the only unit that can really kill this Wasp are these marksmen, and that's such a waste in terms of damage. Right, the marksmen are just taking forever to clear out these 3 squads of Wasp, and that gives me the opportunity to take tower, and as a result of that, taking the game. So, a very tricky type of standard game. I think you have to be very careful, especially after round 6, with your decisions. In this case, I've noticed a weakness for my opponent, which is actually his own Stormcallers, of having incendiary bomb on your Stormcallers. I personally don't like to take fire in this kind of position. It's just because it can be exploited a little too quickly. And then the second hole that I found in my opponent's board is just the lack of mass anti-air. So triple Wasp really sealed the deal in the final round. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed this game, and if you want to see another one, here's a video for you, and I will see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics, Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress, the battlefield's alive with swarms.